statement, we should go green. What compelling evidence is there to support this view?
Well, I would argue that there is compelling evidence that we have no choice but to go green or become more sustainable. There is strong evidence both in terms of our impact on the environment from our activities, that what we're doing is not sustainable, and there's also compelling evidence that our demand for resources to drive our current society and our consumerism is also not sustainable. We're pumping vast amounts of CO2, directly CO2 from burning of fossil fuels, a lot of it from petroleum, a lot of it from coal, and we're also indirectly pumping in some methane. In a world where we're starting to face real constraints, both in terms of supply of raw resources and in terms of our minimising the impact from our waste, our various streams of waste from our consumer. It's essentially, I think we need to think about how we can be happier as individuals in the society and by consuming less, or becoming comfortable with the concept of less doesn't necessarily make you less happy. So what's important to us? I think that we've got to accept the fact that the age of buying something cheap and then using it and then throwing away and then buying something else cheap and then using it and throwing away is going to come to an end. And I can remember as a child that things were repaired. You got them repaired. There was a whole industry of repair people out there. You may have had problems with, but things were repaired, and parts were made, fabricated, reused, and things like that. And that was considered normal, and that wasn't that long ago. That's only 30 years, 40 years ago. It's only with the recent trend and the drive towards globalisation and the use of cheap labour in third world countries or developing countries that we've suddenly got this approach that everything is cheap. You use it, if you get 10 years out of it, you're really lucky. Normally you get 5 or 7 years, and anyway, there's planned obsolescence, especially with something like this. And I mean, that may still happen with things like washing machines and fridges and cars, assuming that you own a car in the future, because you may choose not to own a car. Car ownership is a really interesting social phenomenon. Again, when I was a child in the 60s and 70s, many families didn't have cars. They didn't need cars. Or if they did have a car, they had one car, and it was shared by everybody. And now we have 3, 4, 5 cars in a fair household, and it's a reflection, of course, of the deregulation of the car market in the 80s, allowing cheaper second-hand imports. And you could argue that that was a really good thing in some ways. It provided access, but it also resulted in traffic congestion, pollution, urban sprawl, increased pollution, water pollution, increased demand for roading, which you've got to pay for somehow. There's increased noise. There are a whole bunch of things that the consequence of that, and also the running down of the public transport system, which didn't just start in the 80s. It's actually been going on since the Second World War. And there's a whole bunch of anecdotal stories about how the American car manufacturing industry went about running down public transport in the United States, or influencing the rundown of public transport. But we're starting to see that reverse already. We're starting to see, like in Europe, the development of high-speed rail, and it's actually displacing short-haul transport. People have been wealthy, have been materially wealthy, but time poor, because what we do is we were on this treadmill, consumer's treadmill. So we work long hours so that we can buy the things, so that we can work long hours, and we hire people to do the cleaning, and we go out for fast food. And so what we're going to be is materially poor but time rich, and we're going to start to see more and more people doing things like growing their own vegetables and doing their own DIY a little bit more, and essentially becoming, I suppose, a little bit more like the New Zealand of 40 or 50 years ago. I believe that we need to move. There is no alternative. We must move in a green or more sustainable direction if we want to sustain the things that really are important to us.